Welcome to this video tutorial about how to move CAD models around in Calypso. So we'll start by creating a new measurement plan, and meanwhile, I'm out on Blackboard. I'm in the Course Information tab in the Air Motor folder, and I've already downloaded the file that is named airmotораssembly.step for step file. All right, so I have a blank file up here, and I'll go CAD file, and load. And I'll come over to my downloads, and I don't see this in my list, even though I know I just downloaded it. So I'll hit the pull down on the file filter here, and I'll go to ASYS, and I'm going to come down here to star.star, and I'm going to grab airmotораssembly.step. So .acis or ASYS file is supported. That's a surface-based model platform. Step files are kind of the newer age generic file transfer format. So step file is a lot like a PDF of the CAD world, if you will. So you notice that this comes in with a whole bunch of different parts on there. It's an entire assembly all in one. And let's come up here and go to Planner and Measurement Plan Simulation. And we'll pop this over here and configure these menus like normal. And then we'll come over here to Modify CAD Model. That's the one that looks like the little cube. And let's turn off our plate here. First things first, let's pop into the hierarchy window, and let's just notice that we have a whole bunch of different components here. So on any one of these components, you can right click, and you could delete it if you want. You can hide it at the feature level, so I'm not sure what that one is, but let's try hiding some others here. We'll right click on that one and we'll say hide feature, and you can see that you can hide any individual part. All right, we can also come over here to the edit window, and we can do something very similar here. We can click on any individual surface. This is funny. This window is really not all that helpful. This is for individual surfaces. We should come to the edit body window, and we have a lot of those same commands that we were just looking at in the hierarchy window. It's just this is a more visual way of doing it. You select things from the graphics screen. So now if I click on this body, you notice that in the Edit Body window, I select the entire body rather than just one individual surface. And now I can say Hide Feature, or click on that, Hide Feature. And the other nice thing about this window is rather than having to right-click a whole bunch of times, we can just say All Features Visible, although sometimes that can be annoying too if you've intentionally hidden many features. Let's go through and hide every single one of these weights here. So we'll grab the first one, we'll hold Control, and we'll click on all the other ones to highlight them in pink, and then we'll say Hide Feature. That hides them all at once. And then let's grab this flywheel, and I'm going to come down here to Feature Color, and I'm going to hit the ... and I'll make this, oh, I don't know, some sort of blue. So that's kind of nice too. I've noticed that this is helpful if you're getting weird reflections when you look exactly from the top of the part. If you change the part to a different color, sometimes that can be helpful in minimizing the amount of reflectivity. So, you know, that can be a helpful trick. The other thing you could do, you could take all of the fixtures and set them to one color and set your part to a different color. Whatever you want. So whole bunch of functionality here. Of course, you can delete bodies, reverse normals. If things are probing from the wrong side, you can do that. You can also mirror, scale, and all of that good stuff. All right, let's take a look at the Create Geometry page. This can be helpful too. So if we come in here and create a surface, and we just say Create, notice that that gives us a surface, just a surface, infinitely thin, in the Z direction, but it can be expanded or collapsed in the X or the Y direction by expanding the U or the V. And as soon as we have handles there, we can pull this to whatever size we want. All right, we can also change the orientation of this by changing our normal vector. So 0, 0, 1 is going to put that plane so that it lies in the XY plane. If we go 1, 0, and 0, that is going to put the plane so that it falls in the the YZ plane. And if we go 0, 1, 0, that will put that plane so that it falls in the XZ plane. So the reason I even mention this is because this can be helpful for like a quick one-off fixture. If you have like a clamp or something like that off that's hanging over the top of your part and you want to avoid it, of course there are many other ways of doing this as well, but if you don't have a CAD model for that feature, probably the fastest way of doing collision detection is to just draw a really quick plane there. So we can do that. We can also make cylinders as well. So if we click on a cylinder here, this is creating a surface-based model. And just like we changed the orientation last time, we can change the orientation here as well. So basically you want to put in values between 0 and 1 for each one of these, and that will change its orientation. If you put a 1 in multiples of these, you're putting it at a 45-degree angle. You can see if we put a 1 in all three of those, you're putting this at some funky angle that is basically an isometric angle. It's a compromise of top, right, and front side. So more often than not, it'll be either 0, 0, 1, or 0, 1, 0, or 1, 0, 0, and that's going to lie in your primary planes. Of course, you can adjust your height here and your radius as well to adjust the size of that. So that's what's going on with Create Geometry. And I think we've officially looked at all of these different windows at one time or another between past videos and this video. So now you know what all those different windows do. Now that we know that, we are going to spend a bit of time in this transformation window learning about what this does. Okay, so, well, first things first, I want to get rid of this plane right here. For that one, I'm going to come over here to Edit Body, and sorry, that's a surface, so I'll come over here to the Edit window, and I will just hide that feature, or if I wanted, I could come over here to the Hierarchy, and you can see that this has just turned off the visibility of many of these. We could come in here and find that entity, and we could right-click and delete it as well, and that is equally valid. All right, so now that we've gotten that surface we created out of the way, let's come over here to the Transformation tab and see a little bit about how this works. So for starters, I'm going to grab this base plate, and the first thing I want to do is just rotate this about its center, and I want to rotate it 90 degrees. Let's say I don't like the fact that this hole is at the 9 o'clock position and this one is at the 3 o'clock. I'd like this one that's at the 3 o'clock position to be down here at the 6 o'clock position. So how do we do that? Well, we're in the Transformation tab. We click on the model itself. Notice that the name of the CAD entity has now populated itself. This is also shown as pink or whatever color that is on the screen. And this is so important for this. Two things. Number one, you want to turn center on, and we can come over here and turn on our wireframe and turn off our solid shading if we want, and now we see that little trihedron show up in the center. If we uncheck center, notice that that trihedron that was there goes away. So center is kind of my go-to whenever I use this transformation dialog, particularly when I'm rotating parts. It is extremely helpful. The other thing you want to pay attention to is drag base alignment. Typically, when I'm in this transformation window, I pretty much want this drag base alignment to be off, although there are some select scenarios when having it on is helpful. This comes in off by default in this menu, but if you're in the positioning menu, that comes in on by default, and it drastically changes how this command works, so just be mindful of that. This center checkbox can be very helpful. This drag base alignment can be very helpful, or can completely change what you thought was going to happen. All right, so with that said, we have center checked on. All I want to do is rotate this 90 degrees. So I'm going to come up here. I want to rotate this 90 degrees about the Z. So I'll type in 90, and then I'll hit Tab. And Tab just advances you to the next window here. What I like about hitting Tab is it gives you a preview of what's going to happen before it happens. So that might have been hard to see just because I turned the shading off. This is now hard to see because I have all those other flywheel weights on there. But we can actually see, if we look from the underside, that that did change the orientation of the hole. As soon as we say apply, notice that the preview window now sticks. That move has been made permanently. Okay, well, let's click on that same model again, and this time we're going to rotate about our y-axis. So I'll turn the shading off again so we can see our trihedron. Our y-axis moves like this. So if we rotate, let's say 90 degrees about our y-axis and hit apply, that time I didn't do the preview, I just hit apply, and the downside of that is as soon as you hit apply, it is done. These windows all clear themselves out, and you cannot undo that. So if you don't know what numbers were in here, you can't get back to them, right? So that's why I like using tab as opposed to apply. When you type in your numbers here, I recommend that you hit tab to get a preview. And then if you like what you see, then you hit apply. Now, again, notice that it says center here is checked on, and this has been checked on the entire time. As soon as you hit apply, it deselects whatever model was selected. So I can actually leave this window open, and let's say I want to move this upright component now. Center is still checked on. Drag base alignment is still checked off. So you can think of those as quote unquote modal codes, meaning, or modal checkboxes, meaning like they remain however you set them until you change them, right? So that's a concept from CNC machining that applies here as well, the concept of modality, right? So this is not checked, meaning I'm not going to change the orientation of my primary alignment over here. This is checked on, meaning that when we rotate, we're rotating about the volumetric center of whatever is highlighted in pink, or whatever color that is. And this time, I'm going to rotate 90 degrees about the x-axis. So again, just turning off the shading here, we can see that our x-axis is right here. So I'm expecting that this back edge is going to flip up like this or flip down like that. The problem is, I don't know if I should go plus 90 or minus 90. So we'll go 90 degrees, and it's so tempting to hit apply, but if you do, it's going to wipe clean all that you've done here, and it will deselect whatever model you have. Again, what I recommend is hit the tab button, and we get our preview. Now, you can see the preview. The pink is where the part still currently is, and the gray shows you where the part will be. So that did actually rotate the part in the orientation that I expected. Here we can see that those drilled holes down here are now down here. If I wanted to go the other direction, I'd simply put a minus in front of that and hit tab, and notice that that's rotated those drilled holes up. But again, as soon as you hit apply, all of those changes are now done. The model has moved. These have cleared themselves out. So it turns out that this software is very powerful, but it leaves a little bit to be desired on the interface side of things. It also is very, what I would call, click sensitive. It's very sensitive to what you click on before you do it. Okay, so let's turn our shading back on here, and now we've moved some things around into some pretty weird orientations. Let's make a mistake here. Let's uncheck center, and now I'm going to grab one of, let's say we grab this cylinder over here, and let's say I just want to rotate this cylinder so that this face that I'm highlighting here, this primary sealing face where the air comes through, this face right here, I want that to end up just rotating so that it can come into contact with this. In other words, I want to rotate this 90 degrees about this x-axis, but I want it to rotate about its volumetric center, right? So I really should have center checked on, but I have it checked off. Let's say I forgot it. I'm going to click on this model here, and I know that I'm rotating about my x-axis because I see the x-axis right here. So I just want this hole and this hole in this face to be aligned on this surface as if we had mated them coincident in SolidWorks, let's say, right? But center is unchecked. I'll come in here and I'll rotate the 90 degrees and hit tab so I get my preview. And notice that it has changed the orientation, but notice that it looks a little weird. It looks like it's rotating pretty far, right? Why is it throwing it so far? Well, that's because I didn't check center on. So let me check center on, and notice that it just puts the center there, but it's still rotating by this really weird pivot distance, if you will. Okay, well, that's not really what I want. I don't want it to throw it all the way over to here. I just want it to rotate about its volumetric center. Okay, well, I'll hit close, and because I never hit apply, it never completed that transformation. So let me just open this what is this called again? Let me open this Modify CAD Model window again. We'll come over here to Transformation. We'll click on that same cylinder, but this time we'll say Center, and notice, turn off shading, notice that when you click on Center, the trihedron shows up. When you turn Center off, that trihedron goes away. So if you see two trihedrons on the screen, that means you're rotating about the center of whatever you have selected. If you only see one, it means you forgot this center checkbox, and it will now, quote unquote, pivot around that central coordinate system. Right? So we want to turn center on. We'll do the exact same thing we did last time. The only difference is this one checkbox. We'll rotate 90 degrees, and notice that that just pivots that model around itself. So, like I said, more often than not, you want this center box to be checked on, at least when you're in the transformation window. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you at the next video.